What about those 5-star recruits, Andy? I remember some running back from Syracuse, New York, that was only 3 stars that turned out to be.
That's
okay.
true. There's 2 of them.
You know, what about that? Does the lack of 5-star recruits perturb you?
Did that,
Andy,
hold on. Did that 3-star running back Mike Hart ever beat Ohio State? No, you didn't. Okay, so go ahead. Andy, go ahead.
The best year of Mike Hart is not my favorite Michigan player anymore. However, regardless, the lack of 5-star recruits does not scare me that much as far as the Wolverines season next year. I mean, we saw, you know, we haven't seen very many 5-star recruits that often in the past, 5-6 years here, and the Wolverines have been a recurring top 5, top 10 recruitment class. It's not like a big deal.
It's not a big deal. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying
there's only so many.
I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I'm just saying, it'd be nice to have some of the top talent come to Ann Arbor. You look at USC. They already got 4 top 5, 5-star prospects. I wish we were at USC. I mean, if you got beautiful women and beaches around, you're going to have that. So, good for USC.
I'll take
Pete
the 3 winners.
Pete Carroll must be a great recruiter.
The fall in the leaves.
Try selling Ann Arbor. Try selling USC.
October weekends. It's great.
All right, but specifically, we're running a little bit late here. Let's look at some specific recruits that have committed to Michigan. Of course, this all can change because they've only verbally committed. Let's take a look. Bryce McNeil, who has been speaking to Shavadrik Beaver. The pronunciation, we're not sure about that on that name, but that's a really positive thing, in my opinion, when you have recruits talking to each other. McNeil's still going on some official visits to other campuses, though. That makes a little bit worried. But you see, best hands. Then move over to Tate Forcier. He's going to graduate early in the winter here. He's going to be here for spring practice. #1 most accurate quarterback in this class.
It's going to be tough for him.
Doesn't that make you
coming over from California? He's going to be here in January. I mean, that's going to be tough, Mr. Forcier. But that's going to be a tough spring practice. But yeah, I mean, Forcier and Beaver, you really can't go wrong with either one from what I've seen. Both guys can throw the ball. Both guys are great athleticism. The thing that when we go back to next year, we're going to be talking about all the turnovers in the offense. Oh, we got this young quarterback.
I'm
not wait for that discussion.
I'm not giving up on 3 yet, but I'm pretty excited to have these 2 guys. I think that the Wolverines will do well to have them competing in our team next year. Putting pressure on the starters that we have in place. And
starters.
It would have been
starters, of course. Starters.
Changes week to week.
It would have been a lot better, Alex, if they would have gotten hold of Russell Shepard. He wound up going to LSU. He was a 5-star dual-threat quarterback, #1 dual-threat quarterback in the country. It would be nice to have him.
Also, Kevin Newsom, a 4-star recruit from Virginia that he committed earlier, ranked a little bit higher than Forcier and Beaver. But let's move on to the national scene, and I feel like it's 2007 all over again. I remember talking with you about that, Andy, on USA Maze one week. I believe I was co-hosting with you, Chris, but craziness all over the place. You got Florida shellacking LSU, you have Oklahoma State beating Missouri, and also Texas over Oklahoma. Of course, that was a battle of unbeatens and 2 very highly ranked teams. But Chris, we've heard the arguments for at least 10 or 15 years that once all teams had their scholarships even, parity, such as that we see in the NFL, would come to college football. Is it here, or is this a 2-year aberration?
I think it's always been there. I mean, sure, the boys. I think a lot of the kids went to the bigger schools. 10 years ago, every kid went to the big school. Now, they're starting to branch out. Look at the Big 12, for instance. There's so many good teams there: Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. And then you got Kansas, and you got Texas Tech. They're #7 in the country. Don't forget about Graham Merrill. I mean, these big schools are becoming a big name because of the athletes they're getting. Like Texas Tech, where were they 10 years ago? So, Alex, there's a lot of parity in college football right now. Big 12 by far the best conference, followed by the SEC.
As far as parity goes, it's something that we've been talking about for 3 or 4 years at least now. It's it's been a recurring trend. It's not that big of a surprise. There's no need to talk about it like it's a new thing. Last year we had a #2 lose 7 weeks in a row, I believe, was the stat.
Right.
And this year is not that big a difference. I mean, we had 1, 3, and 4 all lose this week. They're playing other top 10 teams. You don't have like the 2 top teams in each conference, and that's the main thing here. You're seeing much better teams across the board in every conference, and every conference is pretty good, except for the Big Ten.
I suppose it's different with the Michigan Wolverines perhaps being victims of this parity that we've been seeing in places like Nebraska, places like Oklahoma. 6 years ago they started resurge again. But even in the Big Ten, let's take a look at what happened last week in the Big Ten, guys. Minnesota last year, 1 win. Minnesota this year through 7 weeks, 1 loss.
They're bowl eligible. Golden Gophers are going to a bowl game.
6-1. They're
6-1. They're ready to go.
Victory over Illinois in Champaign. What's going on in the Big Ten, Chris? And Minnesota looking great. Michigan State looking great.
Yep.
Of course, Ohio State, that's to be expected. But Minnesota and Michigan State are mildly surprising, at least. Minnesota, very surprising.
Yeah, you got those top teams at the top there. You got the Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State. Ohio State, Michigan State, I think we're going to talk about soon. That's going to be an excellent game coming up this weekend. But then, you got the top of the pack, those 3, and then the middle of the pack, and then Michigan down there at the bottom. So it's kind of disappointing. The past 33 years, it's always been Michigan near the top. So I just want to say, Andy, I mean, the Big Ten, I don't think they are down. I think it is a really strong conference. I think they're going to have a few bowl teams this year when you're looking at, the 3 ranked teams. Then you're looking at Minnesota, they're going to a bowl game. Northwestern has a very good chance to go to a bowl game. They've already got 5 wins. You look at these teams, and Iowa, don't need a couple more games. Who knows? I think, you can have A few teams in the Big Ten.
As far as Penn State, who's undefeated is 7-0.
I said besides the ranked
teams.
teams. Besides the ranked teams. I'm talking about the middle
relation, I mean, talking about bowl wins as making our conference a good conference doesn't mean anything to me.
Compared to previous years.
I'm sorry,
bowl bids.
Bowl bids.
I'll grant you that.
I mean, it takes 6 wins. That's nothing to be extremely proud of from your conference. I mean, they're still scheduling. The Big Ten is still scheduling MAC teams, as we saw this week.
Don't we know?
They're still scheduling, just the mid majors, and it's not that hard to get 6 wins. That's a testament to our team, okay?
Let's reevaluate that statement.
No, I've evaluated it hardcore.
You've evaluated it hardcore. All right, still not heard. Well, I guess that's a testament to where we stand now as Michigan football fans. All right, well, let's move on to the games to watch this week. And, of course, as soon as I walk in, the first thing that happens, Andy and Chris berate me for the 3 or 4 games I do not have on this list. So we'll discuss those as well. But Missouri-Texas, will this be a letdown game for Texas, Andy, after winning the Red River Shootout in decisive fashion?
No. I think that Texas is going to come out strong, okay? They played an amazing game the other day. Colt McCoy showed poise. He only had 1 touchdown, not amazing stats, but he led that team. He got him to the goal line for the 3 rushing touchdowns for Johnson. I'm blanking out on his first name. They're one of their backup running backs, or goal line running backs, I should say. And I really think that Texas is going to pull this game out in great fashion.
Mike Gundy and the Oklahoma State Cowboys beating Missouri last
tough
week.
Game for Chase Daniel, too. Thought to be a Heisman candidate and certainly was having a great season, but 1 touchdown, 3 picks against Oklahoma State. Costly turnovers there in the second half. Possibly could have cost this team a chance, at another possible undefeated season. A lot to prove, though, for Texas, too. They got a big stretch coming up. They got, Missouri now, Oklahoma State next week, and then at Texas Tech also. So that's like a 3-week hell stretch right there. They're not going to be, don't worry about it, they're not going to be number 1.
And then if they take that, there's always a Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, so we are so far from the end, we shouldn't even be talking about, who should be number 1 right now or things like this, because there's just so much football.
Well, BCS standings are coming out pretty soon. Am I correct?
It's still October. Come on.
We're going to get a sense of who the computers think are number 1.
Right. The computers.
That's what we want to know, what the computers are thinking.
Right. Well, let's move on. Another Big 12 matchup. I mean, the Big 12, I don't think there's a case to make the SEC conference than the Big 12 is.
Not this year.
Kansas at Oklahoma. Kansas is the 1 loss against South Florida in a weirdo Thursday night game.
Tough game.
I know that we played college football teams play Thursday night games. But Kansas at Oklahoma, Sooners, a little bit down. Are they going to bounce back against the Jayhawks?
They lost to Marco Murray, the star running back in that game against Texas to injury. So it seems they got a huge offensive line, especially on that left side. A lot of NFL talent on that line, and you start running the football. If you're Bob Stoops, Kansas. I mean, they're ranked 16th in the country, but they're nowhere near as good as they were in the trenches last year. Todd Reesing's back, but Oklahoma runs the ball and hold on to the ball. Sam Bradford's been awesome. He was awesome against Texas in the losing
awesome effort. As a freshman and awesome as a sophomore as well.
Sam Bradford had 5 touchdowns in that game. He could easily repeat that feat. Probably lower. 3 touchdowns. I'll give him that. I think it's going to be a pretty convincing victory for Oklahoma. Texas is a much better team.
All right, speaking of convincing victories, as we mentioned last week, Florida, I mean, just totally destroying LSU. Les Miles looking clueless for one of the few times.
How's it going, Les?
Boy, Les.
Just fine, thank you. That's what his response would be. I mean, obviously not, a little bit upset after that 51-21 loss. But so LSU moving to South Carolina now. South Carolina losses to Vanderbilt and Georgia.
Close losses, and those are early. Now they won 3 in a row. They got a little bit of confidence.
Steve Spurrier coach team.
Yeah, they put the young kid Garcia in their quarterback, get him some experience. See what the old ball coach has got in store here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Les Miles is looking to run the ball too. I always bring it right back to running the ball. They had less than 100 yards on the ground last game in that loss. So Les Miles, you bet, is going to have Keelan Williams, Charles Scott, Trinidad Holiday. Those guys are running football.
Not only on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's safe to say that LSU is going to be, their defense is chomping at the bits. Yeah. Ready after giving up 51 points last week, obviously to a good team, but they're chomping at the bits to just eat South Carolina. And I think they're going to
eat the Gamecocks. All right, and then finally, there's a couple games you guys were mentioning.
Yeah, Alex, you didn't put. What was this?
I think
number 22 Vanderbilt at number 10 Georgia. That's got to be an awesome game.
Really
SEC Vanderbilt. Hold on, Vanderbilt just lost to Mississippi State, a good Mississippi State team.
Yes.
You got to find out, Vanderbilt, are you for real now? You lost a game. You got
changes.
You got hit in the mouth last game. What's going to happen now? How you're going on the road to a hostile environment against a very good Georgia team? Many think possibly could be in the national championship game when it's all said and done. What are you going to do?
That's why I didn't put Vanderbilt on the list. In my defense,
they're both ranked. Come on, South Carolina's not even ranked.
One game I mentioned also is a possible good game. I mean, I was half joking, but in all sincerity, BYU, they're number 9 in the country. They deserve some credit. They're playing a 6-1 TCU team this week. I think it's going to be a pretty good game, and I'd rather watch that than LSU, South Carolina at this point. I like watching mid-majors duke it out, especially 2 good teams right now.
Okay. Well, there you go. I guess I'm an idiot. And, these guys should pick the games to watch from now on, right?
Yeah, and also I can't understand why we didn't talk about Ball State. I mean, they're 7-0, ranked 24th in the nation. Ball State is ranked and Michigan's not ranked. Are you kidding me? What is going on in the world? Obviously, a lot of bad things are happening.
And I'm blanking on Ball State's coach's name, but
doesn't matter.
He's a candidate for Michigan's job.
You know, clearly
That's nice.
a big game we're all forgetting a little bit, though, is the MSU-LSU game that's having up in East
Yeah,
Lansing
that's a big one
pretty
right
soon.
there.
I think it's going to be a sweet game.
Well, we're going to hear a
Bumping
little
up
bit about that from our enemy insider, Charles Clinton, coming up next on Varsity Blue.